Hi everyone, welcome back. In our last video, we introduced the job cost sheet. It is the bucket where we collect all the costs for one specific job. We also identified the three sections of that sheet: direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. So the next logical question is, how do we practically get the cost data onto that sheet? So in this video, we are going to discuss the three or the easy costs, or the two costs that we can directly trace to a job: direct materials and direct labor. So let's stick with our example from the last video, job 101, the custom oak table. And right now that table is just in order and all of our beautiful oak lumber is sitting in the storeroom. That storeroom is an asset called raw materials inventory. So let's look at what that looks like when we purchase something and put it in raw materials inventory, like the wood. So let's say that we buy some wood. Let's say $1,500 of wood. So we are going to put raw materials inventory as a debit. And that would be, I said, $1,500. And then it might be accounts payable or cash or however we ended up paying for that. So right now it is sitting in raw materials inventory. We can't just have our woodworker, let's call her Jane, walk in and take whatever wood she wants. We need a way to track which job that wood is going to. So the document that controls this process is called a materials requisition form, right there. So think of this as an official permission slip to get materials from the storeroom. So when Jane is ready to start, she fills out this form. She might write job 101. Let's say this is February 6th of 2026. So she'll fill out that. The material description might be oak lumber. You'll have to excuse my writing on here. Perhaps each board foot costs $6. And we need 50 board feet. And so the total cost will be $300. And this is going to be requested by Jane and approved by the supervisor, Emily. All right, so this record is also our permission slip, but it's also the way to track what materials went into our custom oak table. So the accountant who gets this materials requisition form now does two things. First, they pull up the job cost sheet for job 101. So that's right over here. And add $300 to the direct materials section. We might put a little description over here for oak. And then they also make a formal journal entry to show that the materials have moved from the storeroom to the factory floor. So the cost is moving from one asset account to another. So we have another inventory account called work in process. So we are moving $500 of that from the raw materials inventory. All right, so that is all of the direct materials, things we can directly trace to the table. So whenever you go get something from the storeroom, you fill out the materials requisition form saying this is how much I am putting in the table. That number then goes to the job cost sheet, and the accountant also makes an entry in the books moving it from the raw materials inventory. So we credit raw materials and put it in work in process inventory for the amount that it was. I think I accidentally put $500. It was supposed to be $300 there. So just a mistake there. So the job cost sheet should match what we put in the journal entry. Now you might be asking, what about the glue, the sandpaper, the screws, all of the little things? These are indirect materials. It would be a waste of time to count exactly 3 cents of glue for the job. Can you imagine, as an accountant, you're working here and you're saying, who is giving me a materials requisition form for 3 cents? This is going to take me like 10 minutes to put this in. I don't want to track 3 cents worth of glue. So when Jane requisitions glue, she still fills out a materials requisition form, but instead of putting a job number, she might just write factory use or general supplies or something. So we're just marking that as moving from the raw materials out onto the work floor. It might be used for multiple projects. So not just this one table. It might be used for the table and some chairs that she's making and whatever else that Jane is putting together. So we're not going to put it on the job cost sheet. Instead, it goes into our general bucket for all indirect costs, or the manufacturing overhead account. So let's do another journal entry over here. Let's see. There we go. So let's say we get $50 worth of glue and put it out there. And so what we are going to do is we're going to put this in our manufacturing overhead account. And that's going to be $50, and also take it out of our raw materials inventory. Now, we need to put it in this manufacturing overhead account because it might be for multiple jobs. And when we are all done, we are going to divide up that manufacturing overhead bucket between all of the different jobs. So this job did use some glue, and we are going to put some of this manufacturing overhead in it. But it didn't use all the glue. It just used some of it. So at the end, we will divide that $50 up among all the different jobs. That's a topic for a different video. So the other thing that we have to look at is, well, so Jane got the materials. Jane also worked on the project, and we had to pay Jane. So how do we track this? So Jane might work on multiple things during the day. And she is going to fill out a labor time ticket at the end of her shift to say, this is what I worked on. And this is probably electronic as well, so everything is pretty much tracked by computers now, but it can be just a slip of paper as well. So she'll fill this out saying, I worked on job 101. I was sanding. My start time, my end time, let's say I started at 8 a.m. and I worked until noon. My writing is horrendous, sorry. So that's 4 hours that I worked on that job. She also might have worked on job 102, which was chairs. And I'm not going to put times, but let's say she worked 3.5 hours. And then at the end of the day was just cleanup. And that was half an hour. So a total of 8 hours that day. Now, the accountant, again, is going to get this labor time ticket and divide things up as he or she can to the different jobs. So if we're looking at our custom oak table, we'll see, oh, Jane worked 4 hours on it. We paid Jane $30 an hour. So that's $120 worth of time going to that table. We'll do the same thing with job 102. We don't have job 102's job cost sheet, but the 3.5 hours that Jane worked on the chairs would then go on that job cost sheet. What is the journal entry that is entered? So we are probably used to, at this point, whenever we have labor or wages or salaries, we put that into wages expense. The difference here when we are building something and there is time being put into manufacturing something, it's not an expense. It actually goes into the cost of the asset. So instead of putting an expense, we're actually going to put this in the work in process inventory. And we said Jane worked $120 on job 101. I'm just going to focus on that one, but we would also we'd probably put job 101, job 102. We would have to debit both of those because we're tracking these jobs separately. So we had $120 and $105 for the for the 3.5 hours. And well, remember that Jane also worked on cleanup. We couldn't trace that to a particular job because both job 101 and 102 contributed to the mess in the workshop. So we can't trace Jane's cleanup just to one of those jobs. So this is indirect labor. So we're going to put that one into manufacturing overhead. And I think that one would be $15. All of that adds up to a total of $240 that we are paying Jane that day. If we are paying Jane right now, we would put it in cash, but we're probably not paying Jane daily. So until we pay Jane, we are going to put this into wages payable. All right, again, that manufacturing overhead will be split out after we're all done. We'll split that out into the different jobs. It will get applied to a job, but again, we can't trace it directly to a single job. So it's just going to be the bucket that holds everything that we're not sure how to trace it, and it's just going to get divided out somehow. Again, future video. All right, so these are again the easy costs that to trace: the direct materials and the direct labor. Direct materials, we are filling out the materials requisition form, say we are using this wood on this table. And the labor, this is how much time I spent specifically building this table. The journal entries for the materials is we move it from raw materials inventory into the work in process inventory. And for the labor, instead of putting it towards an expense, we're actually going to put it into inventory because it's part of the cost of that table. All of this is tracked on the job cost sheet over here so that at the end we know exactly how much this table cost us to build.